Okay, it's 12 o'clock and looks like we have a lot of people here. So I think we can start. First of all, zdravo, srećan 8. mart na site. Good afternoon and welcome to this discussion. Happy International Women's Day. My name is Ema Brown. I'm the Director of Development and Advancement with UMD. And at the same time, I'm a high school basketball coach for varsity team here in Maryland. For today's discussion, I will be joined by two amazing Macedonian women, and we will be touching base on a few topics, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. Before I will introduce you to my panelists, I want to talk a little bit about UMD. I know some of you are probably familiar, but just to refresh your memory who we are. So UMD is a charitable organization with full operation in Australia, Canada, and the United States, and sponsors educational, cultural, and linguistic programming, provides scholarships to Macedonian college students, holds youth leadership conferences, organizes an annual Birthright Macedonia trip for young professionals. By the way, this will be happening this July from 1st till the 22nd. And we provide aid to children with special needs and lead disaster relief efforts in times of needs. So, with no further ado, I would love to introduce you to my panelists. And so today I will be joined by Elizabeth Naumovski. She is a host of Finance in Personal and an award-winning financial literacy advocate. And then as well, I have Monica Commerford, Ph.D. She's the head of regulatory affairs at Thermo Scientific Patheon Viral Vector Services. I think I got that right. It's just
absolutely. I know.
Love it. But again, ladies, thank you so much for taking the time of this special day. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you for all y'all stand for. I would love just to pass it on to both of you. Liz, we can start with you. Please just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your Macedonian roots.
Sure, thank you. And I'm really happy to be here on 8 Mart. International Women's Day has always been very, very important to me. I remember as a little girl growing up, my mother would say, 8 Mart, which means the 8th of March, is here. And as a little girl growing up in North America, I'm first generation Macedonian, I kept saying, that's not a big day for women. It's Valentine's Day. What did I know, right? But I am first generation. My mother is from Prilep. My father's from Bitola. And it has been interesting growing up first generation Canadian Macedonian with, you know, all of the rules and all of the everything that you have to follow coming from, you know, the homeland. But it's been good, and I've been able to kind of navigate it. Yes, I am a host of Finance's Personal Financial Literacy Show for women. I feel that women need a little bit of help because of a lot of things that we have to go through in life. So I am a female empowerment individual as well. But for my day job, those are all my passion projects. My day job, I'm vice president marketing at a firm called Caldwell Securities in Toronto, and it's in the financial district. They call it Bay Street. In the US, they call it Wall Street. So I do work in the financial industry during my day job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Monica, over to you.
Hi there. Srećan 8. mart na site. Hvala što ste došli sa nas daneska. So happy International Women's Day on 8th March to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As Emma had put it, my name is Monica Commerford, and I am head of regulatory affairs for Thermo Scientific Patheon Viral Vector Services. That is a mouthful, so Emma, don't worry about messing it up a little bit. I sometimes mess it up myself. And it's interesting to follow Elizabeth here simply because we have very similar backgrounds in terms of being first generation here. I'm first generation Macedonian in the United States. My mother was born in Vratnica in Macedonia. My father grew up in Tetovo. And they really came to the United States for a better life. And that's what's been instilled in me ever since I was born here. And thinking about how to navigate our cultural heritage with one, what is expected of us as women, versus two, what am I or what are we passionate about and what are we motivated about, has always felt like two, when I was younger, it somewhat felt like it was two diametrically opposing forces within me. And it's only been within the last decade where I have really been able to embrace both halves of myself and to appreciate, as a Macedonian woman, what I have to bring to the table. And importantly, as a woman in general, what I have to bring to the table. So I'm very excited to have this conversation here with Emma and Elizabeth today.
Again, thank you both. And I mean, just from your introduction, I mean, sounds like both of you have a lot going on. Liz, as you mentioned, you have all of these things that you're so passionate about, but you still have a full-time job. And I know, Monica, same with you. And then you have two little girls, and I know they're a handful. So just tell me, when do you find time for yourself? When do you find time just like to breathe and relax and just be you?
A calendar. You need a calendar. You need to schedule everything. I wake up at 5:30 every morning. I schedule a workout. If I want some me time, I'll go schedule a manicure. The other thing too is I need to be able to talk to girlfriends as well. I've got a great partner at home. My husband is very supportive of everything that I do. However, I still need to be able to, chat with Monica and Emma. And I think during the pandemic, what has kept me a little bit grounded is the fact that I can talk to my friends on Zoom and, have a glass of wine and we can catch up so that, your life is still continuing. But I think it's very, very important for all of us to schedule me time, whether it's a bath, whether it's getting your hair done, whether it's getting your nails, even just going for a walk and just having some time to yourself. Because with mental health issues right now, because of COVID and a war and everything else that's happening, we really need to take care of ourselves, because when it's too late, it's really hard to bring ourselves back to where we were.
Yep.
Absolutely. I completely agree with everything you said, Elizabeth. In my family, we also are heavily organized. We have a shared Google Calendar, for example, where all appointments, anything that's related to our family that we need to go to or we need to do is on that Google Calendar. And I feel like to some degree it's my life, but as Elizabeth had mentioned, you need to carve that time out for yourself. And frankly, it's been challenging for me lately, where I'm trying to balance dance class with work responsibilities, with going, as part of my job at Thermo Fisher, there are multiple sites within Massachusetts that I go visit, and trying to schedule the travel time and visiting those sites. And additionally, trying to balance everything outside of my work life, my family life, has been challenging. And it takes also for me to have, it's important for me to have a supportive partner where he is able to come and tell me, Monica, you need time to yourself. I'll take care of the kids. I'm also in a lucky position where my family, my mother and father live with me, and they're able to help support our family in any way that they can help us, which has been absolutely, fantastic for us. And I think it was a long time ago, someone said it takes a village to raise a family. And it's only recently that I realized that's absolutely true. My life has gotten a little easier. I'm able to carve out a little more time for myself, but more importantly, we're able to still build and maintain those family connections, which I very much cherish.
May I just add to that, Monica? I think a lot of people have this notion that they've got to do everything on their own. It's okay, I'll do it. It's okay, I'll do it. And what happens is you just take on absolutely everything and then you end up failing. So I think the best thing is, surround yourself with pretty incredible people, because you'll never fail, and lean on people and ask questions. So, if there's something that I don't know, I'll contact Monica or I'll contact Emma, because one of them will know. And there's nothing wrong with surrounding yourself with people that will support you, people that you can ask questions, and people that will never let you fall or fail.
Absolutely. And those people, because they care about you, when you are struggling, will jump in to help you. And that's why it's important to have the right people around you as well, people that care about you, that understand you, and are also driven similarly as you too.
And, you know, I often laugh. I think it's okay to fire a friend. And what do I mean by that? A lot of people end up hanging on to friends that they had when they were in their 20s or in high school and university. And sometimes when you grow, just like certain relationships, you end up growing in different directions. And it's a struggle to try to keep that relationship going when one thought process is this way and the other thought process is this way. So I think it's perfectly acceptable to fire friends. I mean, you can't fire your family, but you can choose to spend more time with them or less time with them as well.
Yeah, Liz, I love that you mentioned that, because as you said, like just hitting that over 30 years mark is just like, I see the differences with some people that I was friends with in college. I mean, life was much simpler and we didn't have families, we didn't have careers. And now it's like, when do I find this time to actually message them? Or am I gonna be the only one messaging? Do I get like somebody is just like that, as you said, that respect and just growing that relationship? But both of you mentioned that you both have very supportive spouses, which I can definitely relate to. As I mentioned before, with coaching basketball, has been nights that I have to leave for a practice, I have to leave for games, and I have to leave my daughter at home. But I know that my husband will take care of her. I know he will make her dinner, he will give her bath, he will put her to sleep, and I don't have to worry about it. And unfortunately, I know a lot of women don't have that power, that support from their spouse. So, and my grandma always say, the biggest education in your life is who you marry. So what do you two think about on that topic? How important is to find the right spouse, to have that successful career, or just do something different in life?
So
go ahead, Elizabeth.
Sorry, Monica.
No problem.
Because I'm in finance, I'm going to quote Warren Buffett, or maybe not really quote him, but he said that the most important decision you will ever make is marrying someone, you know, having a good partner. And, you know, I look at Brown, I look at Commerford. Mine says Naumovski, but it should say Germans. So I see that we all have different last names here. And so, yeah, spouses are very, very important. I can tell you, you know, we've been in COVID lockdown, working longer hours, right? Trying to do really well for clients, trying to do really well for working for yourself, trying to keep your family together, but trying to also do my passion projects. Like I've done over 30 speeches since March 2020 lockdowns. And last year, my husband came to me and said, you haven't done any of your shows. You're not helping anybody with your shows. And I said, well, I don't know how to do it because I don't have a studio to go to. And he said, well, you know what? You can tape it on Zoom and I will edit it for you. And I will learn how to edit. I will learn to put it on YouTube and I will help you promote it. So rather than, you know, having me not do my show, he was extremely supportive and came up with different ideas and jumped in and said, well, I'll learn how to do this to make it happen. I mean, I don't have small children like the two of you do, but this is how he helps me in very important ways, things that are important to me.
No, I completely agree. Having a supportive spouse makes life a whole lot easier. And more importantly, having an understanding supportive spouse that can almost read you like a book, knows when you're anxious, when you're stressed, or even when you're happy. I think is extremely important. With my situation, I actually ended up meeting my husband online. Prior to meeting him, I have dated other men who were doctors, engineers, also in a Ph.D. program, were very technically and scientifically savvy, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work out, likely because I never felt that support from them. Upon meeting my husband, though, his first words, well, not his first words, but during our first date in that first conversation, I told him about my background. I told him about where I went to school. And one thing I haven't mentioned to the group here, I have a PhD from Harvard University. The words that he said to me, oh my gosh, that is so cool. Tell me more. I'm actually super interested. And I knew he was a keeper from that point on. And with my husband, considering, you know, the last few years during COVID times and during the pandemic, he was able to help support our family and our children. He's been supportive of my family as well. I really couldn't have asked for a better partner, but in searching for that partner, we found that we were in similar phases in life, and we found that to be important. We had similar passions and motivations and drive, and we found that to be a link between us. And we make a conscious decision every day to maintain that link and to constantly communicate, whether it's something good you want to communicate about or something even bad you want to communicate about. I think maintaining that active communication and, more importantly, active listening is what helps our relationship and is what helps each of us support the other as well.
You know, Monica, you touched upon a really good point, because everybody focuses on really good times, right? Everybody looks at the good times they had. Everybody focuses on, you know, we went through life and this was fantastic, but you need to be able to have that negative conversation, that awful conversation with your spouse, and know that everything's going to be okay. And that's one of the important things too, not only, you know, in good times, but in bad times as well. You shouldn't have to filter what you're talking about. You shouldn't have to filter, you know, with every different situation that comes up. If something's bad, you need to go and discuss it. You need to feel free to discuss it.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And finding someone who listens to you, understands you, I think is, you know, a huge part of that too.
Agreed.
Yes. Yes. And as you both said, is that a healthy disagreement. And it's always good to just sit down and have conversation, or there is a lot of different ways to get that solved. But as Monica mentioned, just listening to understand, not just to say what you're looking at the situation the way that you're looking at, and not just saying that, just making sure that you put yourself in their shoes as well and just understand that.
And actually, I want to tag on to that one more thought that I had. It's also thinking about yourselves as a unit. Whatever one person does, it benefits the other, because you're bringing and lifting each other up. For example, with the work that I do, sometimes I do put in long hours, but those hours mean something and gaining experience for me in my career. But my husband sees it as that is helping our entire family unit progress, either whether it's in my career or his career or in our children's education. Any time that we put a priority or focus on one individual in the family, it's lifting up the entire family.
Yep, that's a good point. That's a really good point. And I think, you know, if we can just summarize the whole thing is, sometimes as women, we like to settle. You know, oh, he's okay with this, or she's okay with this, or whatever, regardless of your gender. I think settling will hurt you in the long run. And, you know, if you have to wait and find the right person that will uplift you, then, you know, you're very fortunate and good for you.
Yeah. Don't make sure you see the red flags and make sure you recognize those, and don't just hope that something is going to change.
And I'm going to add red flags too about, you know, Monica talked about meeting her husband online. Yes. And red flags. I want to talk about romance scams, because this is something that has been happening more and more right now. I mean, everyone's seen the Tinder swindler. Everyone's seen Inventing Anna. I mean, there's so many things coming to the forefront right now. But, you know, as a financial literacy advocate, I have been talking about romance scams for years right now and trying to get it up front and center to a lot of people. And the problem is people think, well, I'm smart. It'll never happen to me. I run in a better circle. It'll never happen to me. And I'm here to say that we all need to be careful, and we all need to protect ourselves and look at red flags. If you're looking at romance scams, if you've never met someone before, and, you know, you've been talking to each other online or texting to each other, you know, and all of a sudden this person professes love for you very, very quickly, you know, those are red flags. When somebody asks you for money, those are red flags. But even in your family, if family asks you for money, or if a friend asks you for money, you have to be very, very careful. because money can ruin relationships, especially when you lend them to somebody and they haven't returned it within a month or a year or whatever. So when someone asks you for money, that's another red flag as well. If someone's isolating you from your family and just saying, I love you, you need to be with me all the time and forget about your family, another red flag. So we all have to be careful and we all have to protect each other as well. And there's no shame. If you have been scammed or whatever, tell a friend, go to the police department. And in Canada, it's the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. But always report it, because we need to protect ourselves and future selves from getting scammed.
Absolutely. And I think protecting your future selves is something we really need to think about, because there are consequences to actions you have now. If you do get scammed, that could affect in the United States, your credit score, for example. That's something that you can't easily take care of over time. And then you mentioned, Elizabeth, lending family money. My husband always has a saying, you never lend family money, you always give it to them expecting not to get it back.
Right.
Because money in the end is not as important as, that family relationship. So just as soon as it leaves your hand, just assume you're never getting it back. And those, I think, were somewhat wise words to live by from him.
But to add to that too, Monica, you talked about credit scores. So even co-signing for someone, co-signing a loan, or getting a credit card out and giving it to someone, you are responsible. You are responsible for payment of anything that is accumulated on that credit card, or if that loan hasn't been paid. So always think twice before you co-sign, get a credit card for someone, or start giving someone money, especially someone that you really don't know.
And then just going back to the topic of, finances in general, one thing that my husband and I were very interested in doing prior to getting married is talking about our finances and being open and honest in where we were financially speaking. Is there debt that was incurred that we needed to work through? Because in the end, we're going to be working through it together once we get married. And then what do finances look like as a married couple? Do you separate those finances? I actually have some friends who have separate bank accounts, and they have one small joint bank account where that money goes specifically to, food, shelter, family life, but they both each maintain their own bank accounts for whatever it is they want to buy. Other friends, myself included, you have the shared bank accounts. And once you get to that step of sharing finances, really once you have that supportive partner, it's important to be open and transparent about it as well.
You're 100% correct. It is extremely important, because you need to know whether your partner has $250,000 debt and something happens to the relationship. You're also responsible for it. And I actually am a firm believer that even if a lot of people have commingled their funds and have one bank account, I also think it's really important to have a separate bank account for yourself, just in case your relationship becomes abusive or something happens and you need to escape and get out. It's always good to have your own money.
Definitely. Okay, so now that we are talking about we talked a little bit about the romance scheme. So let's talk about nowadays dating. I mean, obviously, I know the romance scheme is something that is very portrayed, but also that's pretty much the only way people meet nowadays, especially with COVID and not being able to go to a bar, not being able to go to all of these different events. What are some advice that you would just give young women who are out there dating on all of these dating apps? And Monica, I know that's how you met your husband. I don't know if you have an advice for some young women going through it.
Two pieces of advice. One, go into it with open eyes and realize you're meeting someone online that you have never seen before. And even though you've talked to them online, can you really trust them? So my husband actually likes talking about this example. His name is Chris. When we met online, we met through OkCupid. He indicated that his activity on OkCupid was dwindling. He wasn't as interested anymore. He wasn't finding the right person. So when I messaged him on OkCupid, he thought I was a bot. right? He thought that there's this nice, smart, pretty girl messaging me. Is this just the platform's way of keeping me on? And this leads to my second piece of advice. Meet as soon as possible if you're able to. Make that real world connection. We started chatting, exchanged texts through the platform, and then within 2-3 weeks, we ensured that we met in order to make sure to see if what we saw virtually matched what's in reality. Because to be quite frank with you, in certain instances, looks are important, background's important, that personality is also extremely important. So just circling back those two pieces of advice, go into it with open eyes and make sure you make that real world connection too, if you're able to make that real world connection. I know in certain instances you're not able to, but I have to tell you, Emma, if I were dating now, I have no idea what I'd do. Yeah. It's just like Elizabeth said, Tinder swindlers are out there. I have friends who are currently dating as well, and they make sure they tell me who they're going on a date with and send me a picture and tell me which restaurant they go to. So if something should happen, I am aware, their other friends are aware, and we can follow up to make sure they're okay, because you really don't know what's out there in the real world. Is this person really showing you their real self online? So no matter what, you still need to make sure that you're taken care of and you're protecting yourself. In fact, on my first date with my husband, we went to a sushi restaurant. One of my good friends and I planned to have her call me in the middle of that date and just simply to do a check-in, see if I was okay. If I wasn't, it would have been a great out for me to simply say, I'm sorry, something came up. I need to step, we need to end this date early. Or if it was going well, she had that verbal confirmation. So, and this was back in 2013. I can't imagine what it's like 9 years later.
Yeah. I mean, I love it that sorry, Liz.
Go ahead.
As you said, it's just like, you can fire friends, and just like that friendship, like when you have those people who will check on you, who will make sure you're okay. And that's very important as well, just so you can have a normal relationship down the road. But Liz, sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I was going to say, I mean, I met my husband because a friend of mine had introduced us. Mm-hmm. But you still have to keep your eyes open. You still have to look for red flags, even if somebody's introduced you and you've been seeing this person for 6 months or whatever. We always have to be careful, and we have to have that little, the spidey senses just on automatic to make sure that we are protecting ourselves. And I'm not saying, I mean, don't trust anybody, but when something's new, it's new for a reason, and it'll take you a little bit of time to navigate around it, whether it's a new job or a new relationship, new friend. You have to test the waters to see where the trust factor is and whether, this person or whatever it is can be trusted.
It's interesting because I met my husband at the bar. So the next day I'm like, oh, I'm going to add him on Facebook. I have to see what's on Facebook. I have to see who is his family. I have to find out his friends. So I had to find out everything about him. So we always laugh about it when someone is like, oh, I need to find this person on Facebook. And I'm like, let's do a little bit of research, who they are, who you going out with, do you know? So, I mean, it's interesting what all you can find about a person on social media, especially nowadays.
Emma, I have to say, how also interesting is it that we have to be our own private investigators and our own advocates to ensure our safety, yes. Right? And even meeting a friend of a friend, it's important, like Elizabeth said, to keep your eyes open and go into it knowing what the situation is. Because even as women, we'd like to say it's 2022. We still need to protect ourselves. There are still, certain stereotypes that people follow that others may not ascribe to. There are still dangers out there. We just need to ensure that we understand what the risks are in certain situations, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's in, work, in life, etc., in family life. It's always about managing that. And we also
we'll go and Google somebody that we're meeting for a business meeting. If
LinkedIn.
Yeah, you looked at LinkedIn, you look at whatever, if there's a news story. So we're always doing that anyway during work. So I think it's just natural that we, have it done into our personal lives as well. And now we're at that level where we all have to protect ourselves one way or another because there are no secrets online. So, if we need to know something, it'll probably be there.
Yeah, definitely. So we've been talking a lot about relationships, and we talked a little bit about money. I do want to get a little bit more, to get back to that subject a little bit, to that relationship between money and nowadays women are expected to do way too much. I mean, we are expected to have our hair done, nails done, have nice clothes, and all of that costs money. So what are some advice that maybe, Liz, especially you with being in that field, what is something that you will mention to women just to be mindful of?
So as women, there's quite a few things. Number one, we make less money than men. Number two, we have really weird work life experiences. You start work, you have a child, you stay at home, then you get back into the workforce, you have another child, you stay at home. So men have this linear work experience, and ours is always up and down because we're caregivers or whatever it is that we have to do. So that's the other thing. The third thing is we live longer than men. So not only do we make less money, but we need to make it stretch a lot longer so that, we do have it so that we don't starve when we're retired. I've often talked about making frugality fashionable. I think that look at our roots. I can tell you, I come from peasant stock, right? We were tobacco farmers, moonshine makers. We came here, we had to use what we had. So frugality has always been part of our heritage. So I don't have a problem with buying everything on sale. I don't need 10 of everything. I don't have a problem with, wearing the same dress 20 times or whatever. I actually started purchasing things now where I don't have to have dry cleaning anymore because it's cheaper to just throw it in the wash machine and hang it up to dry than pay for dry cleaning. So to me, I've often thought that, if there's a way to save money, do it. We've looked at the pandemic. There were a lot of people that didn't have emergency funds, a lot of people that didn't have that safety net during COVID. Now we're in a war. Now inflation has gone up like crazy, and we haven't even seen anything yet. We still need emergency funds. People thought, well, COVID's over. I don't need to save money anymore. And they started racking up debt. Get rid of your debt. Debt is very stressful. It's horrible. And it'll kill you in the long run. I mean, if you look at buying something that's $1,000 and you make $20 an hour, it's going to take you 50 hours of work, hard work, without putting food on your table to pay for that. And if you put it on your credit card and only pay the minimum $10 per month, it'll be about 8.5 years to pay that $1,000 item off. So think before you spend your money, because right now, people want things. You want a designer thing. You want the best phone possible. You want a high new computer. But you know what? As you get older, you don't want stuff. So think about not purchasing all that stuff when you're younger and start accumulating your wealth so that when you get older, you don't have the debt. You live where you want to live and you have the most incredible experiences that life can offer. But debt is a killer. It sucks the life out of you, and we really, really have to get rid of it.
And Elizabeth, let's talk about this a little more because I like to bring culture into this and heritage into this. Let me give you an example. When I was 10 years old, I went to Macedonia to visit my grandparents. I got up, showered, got ready for the day. I was wearing sweatpants, put my hair up in a bun, and told my grandfather I was going to go out and buy some bread. He said, no, you're not looking like that. Go back and curl your hair, put on makeup, right? But that's the culture. The culture is to present yourself to the world that makes you feel happy and that makes you seem as if you are, I don't want to say a higher class because you don't that doesn't necessarily equate to it, but makes you seem like something you're not. You see that on Instagram filters as well. But trying to balance that with the other side of our culture with being frugal, because we Macedonians have lived through war. Our ancestors have struggled for quite some time. And then those lessons learned have been passed down to us. I think it's so interesting to think about, well, we need to be able to present ourselves in such a way that's culturally acceptable, but then balance that with frugality. So talking about how you just said, talking about, do you really need an item? Can you buy it on sale? In my family, what we think about is that item of a high quality that it can last a long time? Because I'd rather invest $100 in a great pair of boots that will last me at least 5 to 10 years than to buy $20 boots every year over the course of the next 10 years, for example. And I always found it so interesting, though, in our culture that we have to think about how we present ourselves to the culture, to the world, but then also balance that, the frugality and lessons learned that we have. And admittedly, that's been a challenge of mine as well. And I'm sure it's going to be a challenge even as I get older. But what I've realized is that I like to do things that make me happy. And this gets back to the self-care discussion we had earlier. Getting my hair done makes me super happy. Getting my nails done make me super happy. I will schedule it on my Google Calendar until I'm 85. I know that makes me feel good. And that also helps me to be the best person I can be and to make me realize that this is something that I've become aware about concerning myself. I love making sure that I am presentable and I look good, but I balance that with, okay, can I go to Macy's and go to the sale rack? Can I find an item through a reputable source online that's similar but higher quality, but potentially maybe a little bit cheaper, right? I actually don't simply just go, especially with online shopping, go to one vendor. I will compare prices until I find the right price that I'm willing to pay, even if it's slightly, higher than, Macy's or Lord & Taylor's, or even less than. I just want to ensure that the product that I'm buying is a quality product because I'm thinking about the future.
I love this conversation, and really is, it's funny because my husband knows whenever I go to the store, I'm like, okay, first we gotta go to the clearance section, see what's there, because it's the things that are in the store. It's not like it's something that is not the same quality. So I love home goods. That's my guilty pleasure. So, but I will check out the clearance section. But another thing that you mentioned, Monica, and I think it was very interesting with our culture and just having your grandfather tell you, hey, you need to look presentable, you need to go back. It's very interesting to me to see all of these couples just walking down Sred Charshia, even if it's Ohrid or Beetle or whatever it is. It's interesting to see the women are all dressed up, hair done, and the man is just wearing sweatpants. I'm sorry, but if you're wearing sweatpants, I'm wearing sweatpants. I'm not dressing up. So that's kind of like a joke between me and my husband. It's like, what are we wearing? Are you dressing up? Okay, then I'll dress up. Are you wearing sweatpants? I'll wear sweatpants. But that's definitely it's been my whole life. I kind of never fit in that, like, okay, I get to dress up because I'm a girly girl. I was always, oh, you play basketball. And yeah, that's why she wears sweatpants, which I loved it. And I never had a problem. But again, it's great that we can now even dress up when I want to. But yeah.
And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with coordinating with your partner.
No.
I love it when we look, perhaps it's the scientist in me. I like things being symmetrical to some degree. So if I look good, I expect my husband to look good as well. If I'm just sitting at home in sweatpants watching Netflix, he could wear his athletic shorts. I don't mind at all. But it goes back to talking about how you need to find someone who is supportive of you, understands you, and then has the same values, passions, motivations as you do as well. And in your case, I'm sure you and your husband love dressing up together when you go out, but when you're at home, you love relaxing and enjoying yourselves in that way too. And in my case, it's very similar. And I can't imagine being with another partner that would potentially feel that way. I always told my husband that I've never ascribed to the finding someone who completes me. I've ascribed to finding someone who complements me. And I think complementation or having a complementary partner is much more important than finding someone who completes you, because you should be completing yourself. In my opinion, I think as women, we need to recognize that we are individuals, that we have our own passions, drives, motivations, thoughts, whatever you want to call it and name it. We're our own people, and that we don't need someone else to complete us. And I know I feel like I just rambled there, but it's just very interesting for me to think about that as well. And then going back to our culture, it's funny. I know culturally we know this about each other, but one of my really good friends who is not Macedonian once told me, I can definitely tell you're Macedonian because you love your bling. Right? So even our folks outside of our culture recognize that's just a cultural distinction, I think, that we have.
Yeah.
So one of the things I struggled with growing up, first generation, my parents came here. My mother left Majuciște, which is a small tobacco village, 7 kilometers from Prilep. And she left when she was 19. And she left, came to Canada with my father, no friends, didn't speak the language, $120 in their pocket, pregnant with me, like really didn't have anything or anyone to fall back on. One of the key things my mother did, though, was raise me village style with the old school village values, because she left when she was 19. So there was none of this modernization. There was none of this newer stuff that everyone else was learning when they left. Everyone else was growing into the country as the country was learning new Western stuff. But my mom still had her old school, values from the village, something that my baba had taught her and my grandmother's grandmother. And the struggle for me was, my mother was always forward thinking. It was always, don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do this. And yet my father, coming from Bitola, he was like, what are the neighbors going to say? And my struggle was always, I don't care about the neighbors. I care about me. And that was a hard thing for me growing up, because as you said, there's that whole image thing. And there's this image that we are all supposed to mold to and uphold. And I was rebellious against that image. I wanted to be me, and I didn't care what the neighbors said or what the neighbors thought. And the neighbors and that's all inclusive of people at church, people in the community. That was, the neighbors all encompassing.
Yeah, Elizabeth, you had such a strong mom. I feel similarly about my mom too,
yeah.
Where in a similar story, my parents came to the United States with one suitcase. My mom was pregnant with me in the 1980s, and to build something from nothing where you don't know the language takes a strong person. My mother and my father as well, I think they're both strong people, but my mother was the one that really helped to instill that sense of independence and that sense of, we're in America. The reason we're here is so you can accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish, right? And combining that with the old village values, because she still thinks of Macedonia as what it was like when she left Macedonia. But I see that as absolutely wonderful, because I get this glimpse into her world to think about how much she must have struggled through her life to just simply raise myself and to raise my brother and to ensure that we're successful. And that's something that I will never be able to thank her enough for, and also to thank my father enough for. So we don't want to necessarily dismiss any of the experiences that our parents had, particularly when we have such strong Macedonian women. It likely is a result of having a strong parental unit or strong parents that are able to help you become the person that you want to become.
I love it. I love the discussion, but I have to go to all the, we have few comments, and Helen, she said, my 94-year-old mother is the most frugal person I know. She refuses to pay for cable. This was long before it was fashionable. So
Actually, that's a new thing right now. I think all the seniors, a lot of people have got rid of their cable, but everyone's doing the satellite thing now. I think every Macedonian has a satellite.
Yeah, we don't have
or an antenna. Sorry, an antenna.
And then Lauren said, I hate that as young women that enjoy using discounts, finding bargain and thrifting for parts of my wardrobe, that people will often look down on me for saving money. I'm thinking long-term and saving money for the future here. Exactly how y'all are saying. Just don't worry what people say. Just do you. Like, you know your budget. Nobody's going to go in.
Exactly.
Get the money. And then if you feel comfortable in it, who cares how they're looking at you? So,
and that doesn't just apply to your wardrobe or to your finances. That applies to your career. That should apply to your family life, because you are the one that owns you, that owns your life, and you're the one who has a specific vision for how you want your life to turn out. I actually see every event or item that I do as a stepping stone to something bigger. And I love Lauren's comment of, I'm thinking long-term and saving money for the future. It's always about thinking 1 or 2 steps ahead, or even 5 steps ahead. Are you doing something right now that will help you become financially literate 10 years from now, that will allow you to be able to still live comfortably during retirement? Or even in thinking about, for example, my case, thinking about my children, what type of education do I want them to have? How will that affect their future life? It's really thinking about that long-term vision.
And actually, Meto just asked a really good question. He said, what is your advice for women trying to get job promotion or salary increase? And I think this is a great question and something we can talk a little bit about.
So I just did a show on that. Actually, my last show that I did for 2021. And I had one of I think she's a senior business reporter, Rita Churcher at the Globe and Mail. And she was talking about getting one job and going for this other job. And she talked to a male counterpart and said, what do I ask for? What do I ask for? And he said, ask for everything. And she said, well, I don't want to be greedy. And he said, well, why not? Ask for everything. And he said, usually what happens is you'll get 90% of what you ask for. But as women, we all try to be polite. We don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. It's like, well, I don't know. I can tell you a lot of the times as women, we will undercut our work and not charge as much as a man would for the exact same work or lesser work. So, you know, when it comes to, you know, asking for a raise or asking for something, ask for the world. But be reasonable. Like, you know, don't ask for crazy stuff. Like, ask for a lot and you'll probably get 90% of it. And she was shocked. She said that, you know, she did ask for a lot and the end result was amazing for her.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing, ask for it. However, in my experience as a woman, when I do ask for it, I need to be sure that I back it up. So I need to ensure that I have my deliverables list ready. I can show what I've done in order to promote my team, my company, etc. And that's okay to some degree. I don't know if my male colleagues, or if in your instance, Elizabeth, the senior reporter's male colleague needed to show exactly what they've done. But I also find it to be quite fulfilling to be able to put a list together of everything that I've accomplished, because it makes me feel accomplished and it makes me realize what I do have to offer.
So Monica, just to add to that, because my mother always said, if you don't know, ask. And that's always been the number one thing for me. I don't know. So I'm going to go and ask. And who cares whether I ask a question, because none of them are ever stupid. However, I I just lost my train of thought, but that's okay. Yeah, ask for it. And then I'll come back to you because I just forgot the rest of it.
It's okay. Well, if somebody has any questions, please feel free to add them. We have 10 more minutes. There's one
yes.
more. Go ahead, please.
Strategy. Strategy is very, very important. As Monica was saying, she has things to back it up. So we have to do strategy at work. So why don't we focus on ourselves and do strategy for ourselves? If you're going to ask for something, there's got to be, a list, the strategy. So, listen to what Monica said. She's got a whole list of things to back things up. That's what we need to do. And that way, it's easier to bring your questions forward because you've got backup.
And strategy can lead into other aspects of your life as well. So for example, I know what I'm good at, but I also know what I'm not good at. So potentially hiring an accountant, hiring a financial advisor, seeking out people that can help you maintain or help you build what it is that you want to build, whether that's wealth, image, etc. I think is extremely important, but it only comes after that self-reflection to realize, I know this is what I know well versus this is what I do not know well. If you don't necessarily want to reach out to people to help you do that, understanding that you're able to learn because you're constantly learning in life, right? Reading self-help books, listening to a podcast, etc., will help you to better understand how to build that wealth. Will help you to better understand how to do your taxes in the United States or in Canada, right? Or even if you in relationships, that may be something that helps you as well.
I'm a firm believer in hiring professionals for everything. And yes, it does cost money and you can hire somebody within your means, but especially if you have a lot of debt and you're struggling, make sure that you reach out to people because there's no reason why you should be struggling alone. There's always another alternative, someone or some organization that can help you.
There's one more question that I really, I can definitely relate to one, and it says how people can best support women in leadership positions, whether at work or in community organizing. So this is something that is, as a basketball coach for a boys team, and I'm the only one who is in our school for the boys teams, or just the second female who is in our county. And just, by the way, we are playing the semifinals tomorrow for our state, and I'm very excited.
Congratulations.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. But when it comes to like what we need as women, and I will never forget my first practice there, and the basketball coach, the head coach, he told all the guys, he was like, this is Coach Emma. I don't want to hear you saying Emma. I don't want to hear you say, hey, like you're treating her with the same respect you would treat any of your coaches. What she says, you will do this that thing. Like it's not like, oh, you have to go through me, or I have to support what she says, or ask me, double check with me if it's right. And it's just being able during the games or during practice, be like, hey coach, what do you think if we do this? Or if we do, and just knowing that that's accepted, like my opinion is accepted, and then he thinks about it. So how people can support women is just like acknowledge that we are in that role. Just stand by us and make sure that other people understand, and don't take lead on some things. Be like, hey, that's her position, that's what she does, so please talk to her, or anything like that, even if it's in community or in work. But if y'all have any other opinions, please, or any other examples.
I just want to say, Emma, that is so impressive.
Yeah,
being a woman in a male-dominated industry like that is very impressive. And I'd like you to know how proud we are of you and your accomplishments. And I think we need to tell each other that more.
Yes.
We really need to tell each other that more. We have really impressive women out there and really impressive Macedonian women out there. So let's bring them into the light. Instead of having a panel, for example, just on 8 March, let's have more panels. Let's have more women come and talk to our groups. Let's have more women put ourselves out there and talk about the stuff that's hard to talk about. and also about supporting other women. I'm a big advocate of supporting emerging women leaders. I think there is a unique experience that a woman can provide another woman because of that trajectory you're talking about, Elizabeth. Work goes like this.
Yep.
Whereas a man's work line goes like this, or maybe like this, right? We're kind of hoping ours goes up to some degree like that. But talking about those experiences, one of my best mentors was actually at the FDA. I'm a former FDA employee. And obviously nothing I say here is FDA of opinion or anything. But one of my former mentors at the FDA had her sitting me down and telling me she understands how hard it is to be a mom, because she lived through that with 3 kids, trying to build her career while at the agency, was something that just blew my mind. And to have her just sit me down and say, go take that time off and don't feel bad about maternity leave. Spend time with your daughters during that time, build that bond. The work will always be here when you come back. That was just something that was so amazing to me. And it came from someone who had experienced similar challenges, obstacles, and struggles. And I think that's what we as women have to offer each other. We have to offer shared experiences where we can learn from each other. And we need to do more of that.
So I'm a firm believer of having a mentor, being a mentor. I actually do have a lot of female Macedonian young women that will send me an email and say, can we do a Zoom call? And, we just talk about work or their personal life or whatever. But I am a huge believer that we all need to have a mentor. As we grow older, there's certain things that we don't know, certain things that we have to learn, whether it's professional or personal. And mentors, male and female, are very, very good. But as women, Monica, I 100%, agree with you. As women, we need to support each other. We need to lift each other up because, I'm not going to be working forever. I need the next generation to be more successful, better, more just better at everything that I ever was. And so we need to support all these up and coming women so that they actually succeed and don't fail.
Definitely. And there's one more question, and that's all we have time for, unfortunately, but it says, what is your advice for young female professionals with limited experience that will be entering the workforce in the coming years?
Reach out to people. For example, if you are interested in regulatory affairs, feel free to ping me. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to talk about what the great aspects of the job are and what the difficult aspects of the job are, so you can make an informed decision about whether that is something that you are interested in. And it's not just about reaching out to other women, reaching out to male, female colleagues, reaching out for informational interviews, just to better understand what career trajectory will look like.
Yeah, and definitely don't be scared. Sorry, Liz, don't be scared to go on LinkedIn and find someone who is in that field and ask. Some people might say no, but some people might say yes. They would meet with you and they will take 15 minutes of their day and they will answer any questions you might have. So just be ready for that possible call and just come in prepared. And you never know who might be the right person to help you, even with either if it's finding that next position or just giving you some advice that actually will help you just down the road.
And just to add to what you were saying, Emma and Monica as well, I've had strangers reach out to me and say, I'm new to marketing. Can you please help me out? They've come into the office. I've had a coffee with them. Ask questions, be inquisitive. Just because you graduated now doesn't mean you're never going to write another exam, doesn't mean that you're never going to have to upgrade yourself or learn something new. Technology is changing. Workforce is changing so quickly right now that you still have to keep upgrading yourself and learning and writing exams and taking more courses just to keep up. So ask the questions and be really, really curious as well.
Okay, and it's 12:59, unfortunately. And again, thank you both so much for this. I really enjoyed this, and I'm hoping most of the people who were online, they enjoyed it as well. And hopefully we can plan some more of those. And I know a lot of women, even men who are from Macedonia, they need to hear this. They need to know that there is some people who are representing our roots, and we should be proud of them. So thank you both for everything you do and the light that y'all are representing our country in. And hopefully we will get together very soon. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Emma. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Elizabeth and Emma as well. And thank you to everyone for joining us.
Have a good one.